Hello, Gwen and Kate here from Right Up My Podcast. Before we get started on this episode, we just wanted to talk to you about our Patreon.
This is where we put all our episode extras for free, and for the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can join the very exclusive Rump Club.
Yes, as a member, you will get access to extra Wiffle Waffle from Kate and I, behind-the-scenes content, music and lyrics from our incredible jingles, and we're even going to put some bonus episodes up there too.
The funds from Patreon go towards covering our running costs, as well as earning our unending love and gratitude.
So if you'd like to become one of our supporters and join the Rump Club, head on over to patreon.com/Right Up My Podcast. Thank you.
It's right up my street, it's my boulevard. It's right up my Straza, oh my God. It's garden right up there, it's right up my podcast.
Welcome to Right Up My Podcast. My name's Gwen Watson.
And my name's Kate White.
And this is the podcast in which we talk to really lovely people about their brilliant ideas to make you feel good.
Absolutely. And we are now back. First episode of season 5.
OMG. Welcome back, Kate.
Welcome back. Bienvenue. This is episode 33. And today we are going to be talking to a lady called Alicia Navarro all about deep work. She's an expert in the science behind deep work and focus, and a founder of a company called Flown, and it's a really fascinating chat for anybody who's interested in working out how to be more productive in their working life.
I don't know if you can see this.
Gwen.
I've got both hands.
The double hand raise from Gwen here. Yes, please teach me your magical powers of concentration.
Do you know what? I don't know about you, but it just feels at the moment that my brain is more scattered than ever. Yeah. I feel like we're super, super busy. We were just talking off air about our to-do lists. What is going on? I was awake in the middle of the night thinking about my to-do list with real kind of like pangs of stress.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Why do we do that to ourselves?
It is relentless right now. I completely agree with you.
We're never going to get to the end of it.
No, never. And it stops you, it stops me anyway, feeling like I can properly relax in the relaxed times, because I know that to-do list is just in my ear going, you got to tick things off me. These things aren't going to happen by themselves. And actually, I don't want to kind of put any spoilers here, but our try it out tasks for this episode really made me think a lot about that. So if you can bear to stick with us for another 30 odd minutes, I will give you the big reveal of why that made me think about that. But yeah, it is just relentless right now, isn't it? And I was sitting looking out the window and it was blue sky, and I was like, God, I want to go outside. I want to go for a walk. I want to go in the garden. It's like, no, can't. Must keep ticking things off the to-do list like a blooming robot.
Like a robot.
Yes.
Well, this isn't why we were put on the earth. No. Can I just tell you, this is also probably something I would have revealed in the try it out section, but hey, I'm gonna pop early. I remember reading this story about this guy who was literally on his deathbed, and he was saying to his wife, now I've got the old paint cans in the garage, and you've got to sort out, like, this wood has got to go to this place, and this wood. I was like, even his to-do list, even on his deathbed. At what point can we rip the to-do list up and just be like, fuck it all? Oh my God.
Too much. Maybe we need to go to the to-do list really brutally, and anything that we can keep living and breathing, if that thing doesn't get done, just cross it off.
I really, really feel that right now. Yeah.
Do it then.
Yes. And I was thinking about this the other day because I had this small ding on my car, and it was one of those things, the people were going to pay for it. Then the garage man broke his wrist. Then COVID happened. It's been going on for so long. This small dent on my bumper that I've needed to get fixed that's been weighing on me. Yeah. And then a couple of weeks ago, my car was written off by a drunk driver who smashed into my car outside my house while I was sleeping.
Drunken bastards. Don't drink and drive, kids.
Don't drink and drive, kids. Anyway, and I was suddenly like, oh, that... I mean, obviously, lots of tears first. But then, oh, that thing that's been weighing on me to do is suddenly gone.
Wow.
And it's like, I suddenly had that feeling of, I want to go through my list and all those things that are bloody weighing on me. Get rid of them. Yeah. Just think, how important is this thing? fuck it off.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
So hung up on these little things, don't we? And it's like, why? Why are we so...
Why?
Yeah.
Anyway. But that's why we're here.
Yes.
That's why we're here. So you too can get into deep work and focus, and we can all enjoy the downtime. Hooray!
Absolutely.
Anyway, something that made me laugh, Kate.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, something that you sent me the other day, actually, which is very relevant to my life. Can you read? It's a little meme. It says how social media works. Can you read it out?
Yeah, Gwen, let's role play. Can you read the first line, the question that the first person asks, and I'll be a random person.
Okay, so me, I prefer mangoes to oranges.
So basically, what you're saying is you hate oranges. You also failed to mention pineapples, bananas, and grapefruits. Educate yourself. I am literally shaking.
Do you know what? This particularly made me laugh because I am currently, through no real fault of my own, a victim of making a comment on a popular post, and lots of very triggered men are feeling the need to respond to it. Now, this is on the post. Did you see recently? It was a couple of weeks ago now. Stephen Mulhern, he was apparently a 90s children's presenter. He's now on I don't know, he does something with Ant and Dec on, I don't know. Anyway, you know him.
Saturday night telly type of stuff.
Yeah. And he went into an Asda. It's like the joke is from the 90s or the 80s. He went up to the cashier. He said, "Oh, there's a car in our way. Can you ask them to move? This is the registration number." And makes her say over the tannoy, "Anybody with a car, NE14ABJ, can you come and move it?" You know, it's like...
It's from The Simpsons.
Well, okay, maybe, yes, all right, it was in The Simpsons, but it's also just such a bloody old joke.
Yeah.
Those jokes.
It
and
is.
Also, this is a man possibly at the prime of his career. What is he doing?
Yeah.
Doing such a stupid old joke.
Yeah.
So all I wrote was, "Is he 12? That's...
Yeah, we're all thinking it.
Yeah, that's all I wrote. Obviously, you've got all the men going, "Oh, Mulhern, he's a fucking legend," etc., etc. There's been a lot of... you've heard this story, haven't you? There's been a lot of... it's been quite controversial.
It has. There's been quite a bit of pushback of people saying, "Oh, I'm not sure that's cool, actually," and that the woman that he got to say it, he put in a bit of a humiliating position.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then shared it on social media for thousands, tens of thousands of other people to then share in her humiliation.
Yes.
But I didn't say any of that. All I said was, "Is he 12?
Yeah. Pretty basic simple statement.
Yeah. Anyway, that has warranted such replies as... Well, the first person was like, "Exactly." And then it's people telling me who he is. "Oh, he's a children's entertainer, actually." The mansplaining. "In children's entertainment since the 90s. It's like, I know who he is, guys. And then somebody else, "He's just an adult with a different sense of humour than you, and that's okay." So, all right, it started off all right, and then they're starting to get a bit more personal. "You must be fun at parties." Then they're getting a bit offensive. 12 inches. Oh, God. And then one of them calls me a Karen.
Oh, God.
Jesus, that's super offensive.
So insulting.
I know. One of them's gone onto my actual Instagram. They can see that I've hosted a burning moon party recently. They say, "The fucking audacity to say that when you go to a burning moon party. Grow up." Somebody told me to delete my account. Somebody else, "What are you, the woke cancel brigade? Learn to have fun, mate." Anyway, it's just carried on.
Oh, God, I can't believe
carried
this.
on. I know.
And literally all you said was, "Is he 12?
Is he 12?
No. God. That's insane how enraged that's made people.
They're so angry. I had another one today. This is 2 weeks later. And honestly, when is it ever going to die down? Somebody's like, "You look 60.
Burn. Oh, my God. I mean, that thing I shared with you then, that is it. I am literally shaking.
Yes. Fuck you.
God.
Anyway.
Oh, good God.
What have you been doing stuff to make yourself feel a bit better than I have?
I have been staying well clear of social media. That's a lie, I haven't. But I'm certainly far too terrified to comment on anything. So bravo you for actually saying something. Never again. What have I been doing? So I went to a live, well, I was going to say it was a live recording of a podcast. It wasn't actually. It was like a stage performance that was based on a podcast.
Ooh.
So the podcast is called Brown Girls Do It Too. It's BBC Asian Network podcast, and you can find it on BBC Sounds. It's absolutely brilliant. And they're now touring around the UK doing this live stage show, which basically includes anecdotes from the podcast, stories they've told, feedback they've had. And it was all inspired by the fact that they got trolled. You think you were trolled for your "Is he 12" comment.
Yeah.
They got trolled so hard for their podcast, so much online abuse for it. So the premise of the podcast is basically they're two South Asian British women, and they basically talk about their sex lives because it's such a taboo in their culture.
Right.
And they really feel that their generation, our generation of British South Asian women are really working out what it means to be a British South Asian woman, because most of their parents weren't born in this country. And so
these are like second generation immigrants.
So their experience of growing up is very different from their parents and their mothers and their aunties' experiences of being teens, young 20s, 30-year-olds. So, and they started it because it was a real taboo in the South Asian community to talk about sex, and it was certainly women not seen as having active sex lives. And so, but actually what it is, they're talking about sex, but really that's a platform to talk about all sorts of other interesting, difficult, painful, personal, funny aspects of their lives and their life experiences. And they kind of were saying that, you know, if you break down that ultimate taboo and talk about these really intimate things in your life, then nothing else is off limits. Then you can talk about your emotional challenges with your parents. Then you can talk about your difficulty in this other area of your life, because you've already shared how you feel about orgasms, so nothing else is off limits. But it was so good, and I laughed, I cried, and then there was a Q&A at the end with some people who were experts in integration, whether that's to do with cultural and racial issues, whether that was to do with gender or sexuality or all these elements, just integration across generations, across cultures, and really amazing work. So then there was this incredible Q&A afterwards.
Wow. Look at
it was really good evening.
Do you know, it's really made me think that I mean, so basically the core of it is being vulnerable and about just being really honest.
And as a way for them to navigate the difficult things that they were going through in their own personal lives, such as arranged marriages, such as being disowned by certain family members for talking about themselves in the way that they talk about themselves.
Oh, what, after putting the podcast out?
Yeah.
God, we're very lucky, aren't we?
Yeah.
We've not been disowned by our dads.
Not yet.
Despite some pretty
my dad does
hairy topics.
My dad does complain a lot, Gwen, about your filthy language.
Oh, sorry, Kate's dad.
But he says it with a twinkle in his eye, that Gwen. She's a fruity one.
Oh, we should meet each other's dads one day. My dad loves you.
Oh, I love your dad. I've never even met him. Oh, hi, Gordon. Shout out.
Our most loyal listeners. My mum's never listened to a single episode. I think she got about halfway through one. She's like, I don't do podcasts. I'm like, all right, Mum.
This is not for me, dear.
Yeah. Hey, on that topic, if you finished with that topic, because I'm about to hijack it, as per usual. I started watching a documentary last night on Netflix. I've not finished all of it, so that I just give that caveat. Have you heard of it? It's called Stutz. I think that's how we're pronouncing it, and it's about Stutz, exactly as you would imagine.
Oh,
how would you imagine?
No, I've not heard of it. Stutz, S-T-U-T-S.
Oh no, it's got a Z on the end. Very, very close. Yes.
Of course it does.
And it's named. It's about a man who is a therapist called Phil Stutz, and he happens to be the therapist of Jonah Hill. So it's basically, the premise is it's Jonah Hill wanting to share his therapist's kind of quite unique approach and unique tools with the world, so everybody else can get on board. It's what I've seen so far. It's so well done, because that's how they start, and then they kind of have a moment where they go, hang on. He goes, do you know what? I don't think this is really working, because it keeps coming back to him asking Jonah questions and Jonah going like, no, that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about you. And then Jonah realising halfway through production, which is like a year and a half later, kind of going, do you know what? The only way this is going to work is if I also open up and if I'm vulnerable.
Right.
And so that's how you're going to get real connection with the listener. That's how we're going to really engage, or the viewer, how we're really going to engage and really apply these tools to ourselves. So I think he's done a really brave thing.
Yeah, it is really brave, definitely. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because at what point does it become destructive if to be airing your intimate and personal details about your life? And I only bring this up because you saying that makes me think about something I listened to by Abby Wambach. Oh, it's not how you say her surname.
We'll go with that. Abby Wambach.
So Glennon Doyle's wife.
Who, and I know this is offensive to lesbians, but she makes you want to be gay. Look, I'm saying it. That's
put it out there. Speak your truth.
I know Glennon and Abby have said, look, guys, we appreciate all the feedback saying that you looking at our marriage makes you want to be gay. But look, we find that a bit offensive. But you know what? It's fact. So, Abby Wambach is hot. Carry on.
So anyway, she was talking about the fact that she's been trying to encourage Glennon that when she has a big emotional swelling, or she's struggling with something, or she's feeling pain, that her first port of call shouldn't be to share it with the entire universe, write a book about it or do a podcast about it. Her first port of call maybe should be to speak to the safe people in her life, whether that's Abby or a therapist or anyone else that she feels like she wants to, and to unpack it there first. And then afterwards, if she still wants to, then to share it. But actually putting it straight out into the big black void of the listener verse. Is that a word? Have I just made that up?
I like it. I'm going with it.
Is not necessarily the healthiest way to deal with your problems and
Interesting.
Your issues. And when you first were talking about Jonah Hill's programme, my initial reaction, probably coloured by what Abby had been talking about. See, we're on first name terms, me and Abby now.
You wish.
But initially coloured by that was, gosh, is that a healthy thing to do, to kind of commercialise your therapy sessions or somehow financially profit out of you needing to have regular therapy sessions? Clearly, on hearing the bit more detail about it, that's not actually what he's doing.
Yeah,
at all.
I feel that's not at all what he's doing.
Yes.
And I do feel actually that it will be helpful for a lot of us who are in therapy and those who aren't, who, you know, a lot of useful tools. But that, do you know what? That is really interesting. You should say that about Glennon and Abby, because I have felt that.
Really?
Like when I was reading Glennon's book and really feeling that she was like someone, like a mentor that you can lean on, and she's got the wisdom. And then looking at her on social media and seeing her being broken and sad and sharing a lot. This is a terrible thing to say, but you feel less safe somehow.
Yeah.
There's something about feeling less safe leaning on this person. I don't know.
Yes.
So, although for other people, they'll probably, be able to identify with what she's going through, and it makes her more human. So I don't know. But I guess maybe Abby's point also is that she's making herself more vulnerable, because as we have pointed out, there are a load of fucking douchebags
totally
in the listenerverse.
Yeah, they're out there. None of our listeners, clearly, just FYI. You lot are amazing, but
you lot are really lovely.
Yeah, brilliant.
You're nice to us. Thank God.
It's right up my podcast.
So this is episode 33, all about deep work.
So this episode, we are talking to Alicia Navarro, who is the CEO and founder of Flown, and she is an expert in deep work and flow states. And Flown, her company, is basically an online platform that helps people access that deep work, those flow states, and to feel good about it. So we started our conversation with Alicia by asking her, what is deep work?
So, Deep work is a term that was coined by Cal Newport in his book, Deep Work. And it describes the type of work that you do in a state of distraction-free focus, which is the state that you produce not only your most significant work, but you can learn new skills. And it's in that state that not only do you become your most productive and creative self, but, and fascinatingly, when you get opportunities to work in this state, it's at the heart of that feeling of purposefulness and pride that's essential for a good life.
Okay.
And so the antidote of deep work is, the opposite of deep work is shallow work. And that's really, what a lot of our days are full of. Reactive, lots of little tasks, lots of multitasking.
Multitasking.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you have this illusion that you're getting a lot done, but generally you finish those days feeling, what have I done today?
Oh,
and the beautiful thing about
scattered.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing about deep work, you probably remember, if I asked you to think of like a time that you can remember where you managed to work on a really meaty project and you got it done, and that feeling of pride that you felt, the sense that time was lost and you were just in the midst of this task, whether it was like working out a really complex financial model in a spreadsheet or thinking through a really complex idea in a presentation that you were creating, you come away from those moments feeling proud, but also you've got something done.
Yes.
And yeah, deep work is both that type of work and that state that you get into to achieve it.
Gosh, yeah. That feeling.
I love that state. We know that state, don't we? It's so rare.
And how many days have you had when you get to the end of it and you're like, I have not stopped today, yet I've got nothing to show for it. That frustration.
It's really common, and the thing is that what's crazy, and this is why I got really into the science behind it, because the more you learn about it and realize not only is that state and that type of work beneficial for us as individuals and as a society, and we have all the science about what helps us get into that state, and yet the way that we work, the way that offices are designed, the way that we structure our day is literally the exact opposite. We center our day around shallow work and we hope that deep work will fit in around it. And it should actually be the exact opposite, which is you focus your day around deep work and the shallow work should filter in, trickle down around it. And yet we don't work that way. We've got emails coming in at us. We've got notifications distracting us and pulling us away. We've got people, if we're in an office, passing by and asking us questions. So we're constantly being distracted. There was this amazing statistic I read that the average number of times that someone is interrupted in a workday is between 6 to 8.5 minutes.
Ooh.
And then this is crazy. It takes 23 minutes to get back into a deep work state after you've been interrupted. It basically means that most of us spend our entire day on the surface, and even if we get down into it, we get pulled out of it, and it takes us time to get back in.
So did I get that right? So we're interrupted every 6 to 8 minutes during a working day?
On average.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what that was. Right. Okay. I was going, wow, whilst also trying to work it out in my head what that meant. Thanks, Kate.
So we're interrupted every 6 to 8 minutes, and then each time that happens, it takes us 23 minutes to get focused again. Blimey.
Yeah, so we live in that state
Oh
of feeling, that yearning sense that, damn it, I just haven't got that thing quite done.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we all do that. And it's crazy, even, now that I know a lot about deep work, and we really restructured the way that we run our team to focus around it. And it's still hard. There's a great book by Johan Hari called Stolen Focus, which I also really recommend on this subject, because he explores the fact that our ability to be focused is being systematically eroded by a whole plethora of different external stimuli, whether it be our lifestyle, whether it be big tech and notifications, whether it be our diet. He in fact says that we're touching our phones approximately 2,500 times a day.
Oh, no.
And so we know this, but we're powerless to resist it, because the greatest minds of our time are not, solving
have
cancer.
Built them
they hire
specifically for that reason.
Specifically to distract us. So
yeah.
We are not, the first thing that I kind of remind people is don't feel guilty about this. We are, even the best of us are distracted. Again, in that book, Stolen Focus, he quotes this Harvard law professor who says that even he has to present to his students. His students are no longer able to read textbooks. Yeah. They have to present educational material in short form video. The greatest, smartest minds can't even focus. What hope do the rest of us have? And so when I started to realize this, I was like, good Lord, yes, it's so important then to understand what's going on in our mind and to try to structure our lives and our habits we're not going to win, but at least try to keep our head above water when it comes to focus and deep work.
Okay.
Do you know what? I'm especially laughing at that because when I was reading your website this morning about Flown, which we will come to, when I went onto the website, I was like, oh, I hope there's a video at the top. That was my exact thought. I was like, I hope I could just hit play on something.
Well, do you know what? I'm the opposite. I don't even want there to be a video. I want there to be like maximum of 3 bullet points, each bullet point with no more than 10 words in it. Even a video is too long. So I really want to hear more about the kind of the science of deep work and how we actually go about structuring ourselves. But just off the back of what we've been chatting about, where does this end, this sort of cycle that us humans have got ourselves into of more and more distractions and less ability to focus? At some point, are we all just going to shut down like a computer that's had the plug pulled? Like, what is the end point for this?
Well, I think about that a lot as well. And I think that there's a few different places and we're already seeing that happen. Cases of ADHD diagnoses are skyrocketing at the moment, particularly amongst women, because it turns out that historically ADHD has been much more diagnosed in men because they've been looking for certain male symptoms, and ADHD in women presents quite differently. It's only recently that we've been starting to recognize those signs and starting to diagnose and support women with these different types of neurodivergencies. So there's the form that I think people have traditionally recognized, which is the more hyperactive mode, and that's the one that tends to be diagnosed for boys. And then girls tend to be more diagnosed with the inattentive version of ADHD, which means that they struggle with focus, they struggle with sensory overload, they can be quite disorganized, they can have difficulty remembering instructions, they have difficulty juggling multiple tasks successfully, etc. But you can already see that there's this massive increase in the number of people that are diagnosed or are on the waiting list for diagnosis, especially in the last few years. So we're already seeing that is, yes, partly biological, but it takes a long time for genetics to have an effect. So the fact that there's been such a sharp increase is not purely a biological thing. It's very much an environmental factor as well. Then you have, I guess, the people that are rebelling against distractions, the people that are taking social media off their phones, that are increasingly going to distraction-free retreats, that are trying to have digital detoxes. There's an increased recognition that we need to be more mindful of the forces that are pulling our attention away. We may not be able to win, and in fact, in Stolen Focus, Johan Hari's book, he explores that and says, even me, after writing this book, I can't resist it, but at least we can start to be more mindful of it, and we can start to embed habits into our life that help us manage it. And I guess that's really where we're going. In the same way, and I like to say that I think that deep work and flow states will be for the next decade what meditation and mindfulness have been for the last. Because if you think about it, mindfulness and meditation used to be quite, a thing that someone that went to Bali or Ibiza would do on a retreat. But now, most companies will give their employees a subscription to meditation apps. It's now being talked about by doctors as a credible medicinal solution for different types of physical and emotional ailments. And I think that the next mental health focus will be that of focus, the ability to be able to train our minds to be more mindful of the distractions that are going on, and to train our minds to be increasingly resilient to the forces of distraction.
So what are the wider impacts of us spending more time in the flow and being focused?
So interestingly, Johann Hari wrote another book before Stolen Focus called Lost Connections, where he...
Oh my God, you don't know how many times I've dropped that name on this podcast. Kate's like, oh yeah, here we go again.
I know, but they're two really
book.
relevant books. And he says one of the reasons that we have such high cases of anxiety, depression, and all these other mental health disorders is not because of a chemical imbalance in the brain, but because of our increased lost connections with different things that are important. So our lost connections with nature, a lost connection with a sense of purpose, a lost connection with a sense of community. And the reason deep work and flow states is so important because when you get opportunities to work in this way, you feel more purposeful. You feel like your day is mattered. And it is a primary contribution to us feeling less anxious and less depressed.
I like your hair, your face, your shoes, your laugh, your slowness to take photographs, your jokes, your voice, your interest, your care with strangers and with colleagues. I like your choice of foods, your actions, words, your shifting moods, and above all else, I just like you.
So let's talk then really practically about deep work. What is the structure of deep work? How does this work?
So the first thing I think is to recognize, to start being more mindful in the same way that meditation teaches you, look, you're never going to stop your busy brain, but what you can start to do is become more mindful of the moments that you're pulled away. You can go back to the breath, you can go back to that feeling of just observation of your mind's distractions. Same thing applies to deep work. The first thing I kind of tell people is just be aware of when your focus is being pulled. Without judgment, without anger or self-retribution, just be more mindful of these forces that are pulling your minds away. The next thing to do is start to structure your day so that deep work is at the heart of it and not what's left over if you have time. So the way that looks is at the beginning of the week, make sure that you've booked into your diary sufficient good chunks of time to do deep work. And then your other meetings can go around it. But prioritize the deep work, don't prioritize the shallow work. And then the third thing that you can do is start using, and the thing I've been learning through running Flown, everyone is really different. So I can sit here and say what might work for me, but it's going to be very different to what works for you. So you've got to find the tools and techniques that can create habits and rituals of accountability that help you stay focused. So for some people, that is like the stuff that we offer at Flown, which is these live focus sessions that are led by a flow coach, and you feel that you're part of an accountability group. Within that, there's a lot of the tools and techniques that can help train your mind to be more focused. There's really interesting science behind it, for example. So if you have ADHD or other forms of neurodivergency, one of the techniques that is recommended to help you focus is called body doubling.
Oh,
so body doubling is
I could do with a body double.
Yeah, no, there you go. Not just so that you can star alongside some other hot action hero, but in this case, body doubling is when you're working in the presence of someone else, because your body subconsciously mirrors the positive behaviors that are around you. That's why going to a library to work when you were a student probably was very effective. So virtual body doubling is one of the things that is recommended.
I do that with a friend on Zoom sometimes, and it's great. We don't talk to each other, but it's just we're sat together. I can look up and see a face, but we're just doing our own stuff.
So right there, there's about 3 different psychological hacks that are happening in that kind of moment. So the first is the virtual body doubling, so you seeing someone else. The second is called the Hawthorne effect, which is you're being observed. The fact that you know that you are being observed modifies your behavior.
Yes.
Now, too much of that can go the other way, but enough of it, you don't want vigilance, but you want a sense of accountability. So that can help you stay on task. The third is also just that sense of feeling a human connection. So much of us, particularly now in a post-pandemic world when we are working remotely or increasingly alone, we're lacking that sense of feeling part of something bigger, that sense of being part of a community, that sense of connection with other humans. And so when you're on a virtual body doubling session, like going to the library or doing work with someone on Zoom, you're also working with someone, and that gives you that sense of, I'm not alone in this world. It's a very subtle effect, but it can help keep you buoyant, keep you feeling that tie, that connection to someone, that you don't want to let them down. So all of these things are at play. There's also things like goal setting. So stating your goals makes them 20 to 40% more likely that you'll achieve them. If you say it to someone that you respect or that you're part of an accountability group, it can be as much as double. So there's all these like little hacks, and if you just bring them together and work out what works for you, you can start to establish a set of circumstances that can help you tackle the distraction economy.
The distraction economy,
Yes.
like, it's busy, isn't it? It's the biggest economy we've got. Sorry,
It's
you quickly mentioned, you mentioned. I envy the people who block out their week and they're like, right, I'm doing this on a Thursday. They're doing it on a Sunday night. I would love to be that person, maybe one day. But you were like saying blocking out time for deep work. When does work become deep work? Like, how long is that period?
It varies. So in the book Deep Work, Cal Newport talks about different modes of deep work, and they'll suit different people. So there's different ways to approach it. Generally, we recommend 2 hours is a good stretch of time.
I remember when I first went freelance as a journalist at the time, and I remember someone saying to me, if you can do 3 hours, they said, if you can do 3 hours of focused work in a day, don't worry about doing anything else. Then take the rest of the day off, because they were like, that's kind of the equivalent of the amount of work you would get done if you were in an office with people and meetings and all those distractions from 9 to 5.
But this is probably why we feel so exhausted all the time now, because now we're at our desks. For those of us that are still fully remote, you are working 10 hours, and for many people, they're trying to focus for those 10 hours. And that's why so many of us are feeling so burnt out and exhausted at the end of the day. And so that kind of leads me, I guess, to the other really important aspect of deep work that I haven't covered yet, which is the importance of rest and play and idle time. So idle time is both necessary so that our mind can rest and therefore have the energy once again. It's the equivalent of, what sleep does to your body, idleness does to your brain. And so if you want to have that, if you want your brain to be sharp and alert and awake, you need to have some idle time. And that can be, again, lots of different ways for lots of different people. Sometimes it's exercise. There's this wonderful concept called forest bathing, where you go for a walk in the woods to contemplate the trees. It's a Japanese term, but I love it.
We are converted.
I know, I love that term. And when I used to run deep work retreats, I would always find a place near woods because forest bathing was a really core part of that practice. So there's so many different ways that you can transition from a cerebral state into a physical, a sensual, and an emotional state, but some other state that just isn't cerebral for a pocket of time.
Yeah.
And you'll come back to your work both replenished, but also potentially with new ideas and connections that you might not have otherwise had.
Okay.
And often that's a bit neglected when we talk about deep work because it's so much about the focus. But when you read all the books on the subject, all of them talk about the importance of not working because we need it for our mind to replenish. We have... If we're
sorry, I was a bit emphatic there, but yeah, that's where
it's so true.
That's where the ideas come. That's where the solutions come, isn't it? We need to walk away from the work.
You need to walk away. You also need to sort of be immersed in spaces that have some degree of novelty about them, because otherwise your brain falls into a rut. And you're not able to break into new patterns of thought. So if you want to be creative, the best thing you can do is go to somewhere different and see different things or see different people. Because what happens in your brain is it starts to go, that unrelated thing and that unrelated thing, I can see a connection between them now. And that's when aha moments happen.
Yeah, right.
But if you don't step away and if you're not exposed to diverse people and ideas, those new connections can't happen.
Oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. Definitely. We've all had those periods of time when you do feel like you're chained to your desk and your brain, as you said, your brain just feels like it's becoming rigid and fixed. And do you remember that book from the 70s, I think it was, called The Artist's Way, I think it was called? Mm-hmm. And they recommend that you take yourself on creative dates. I don't know the phrase that they used. And every week you take yourself to a gallery or some other creative environment and experience it. And I guess this is tapping into what you're saying.
Absolutely. And in fact, we use another one of the tactics explored in The Artist's Way called morning pages. So one of the sessions that we run focus sessions, but we also run what we call takeoffs, where you come in, it's only 20 minutes, but it's a morning ritual. You come and you do a mindful exercise, you do morning pages, and then you set your goals for the day in 20 minutes and you're done. But morning pages are, again, a really important aspect of both reflection, exploration of ideas, expunging the niggles that are in your brain that are there, but you're not really admitting that they're there. The second you get them out on paper, it's like, okay, out of my brain, I can now focus.
Something nice to make yourself feel good inside. You deserve it. Yes, you do. You deserve it. Yes. Call a friend. Have a drinky. Make a tower out of toilet rolls. Yes. Sing a song out of tune. Make a meal, one you've never tried before. Buy a jumper. Oh, did a there. Gather all your best ideas, nicest ideas into a poem and give them to a stranger in the park.
So for people listening who have not come across the morning pages before, it's just free writing, isn't it? You're not thinking about it. You're not allowed to stop writing. You've just got to, whatever splurges out, even if it's nonsensical, just keep on writing.
Exactly. It's like journaling, but it's a lot less about documenting your day necessarily. It's just about just putting words on paper.
A mind dump.
Sometimes, exactly. We sometimes like to give people sort of creative sparks of it, like explore this idea, like, what's something that is regrettable on your mind, or what's something that brought you joy, and using that as a creative spark and seeing what comes out. But it doesn't need to have that either.
How important is it that we get in tune with our body's rhythms, as far as finding the right moments in the day or the right days in the week to focus on deep work, whether that's our sleep rhythms, our eating, our sort of monthly cycles? How important is that?
So the one that is unexpectedly important, I guess, is the time of day. So, I think everyone thinks that everyone is like them, but the truth is that there are people, the morning larks, that love getting up early and are at their most focused and productive in the early morning and then flag the rest of the day. You've got let's see if I remember the names. You've got the larks who are awake in the sort of middle of the day, but are not great in the mornings and not great at night. And then you've got the owls that are great at night, but not great throughout the day. So I think, as I said before, just gentle self-reflection and self-interrogation can reveal to you, I guess, I'm not great at mornings. And rather than beat yourself up about it, go, okay, well, how do I structure my day to take advantage of this fact that I've learned about myself? Maybe I do my shallow work in the mornings if it's not my best time, and I set aside my deep work time. I schedule my deep work time so that it coincides with the time that I know that I'm at my most creative and energetic.
So for people listening who are first trying to get into deep work and they've not explored it before, what are the common mistakes that people make?
Oh, good question. Okay, so the common mistakes, I think that people think that they need time to do it. So one of the most common reasons that people don't do it is, I don't have time. And I get that. Like, again, in the book, Deep Work by Cal Newport, he does admit that there are certain professions that will find it naturally harder to do deep work. And they are ones whose role it is to be more reactive. So the CEO of a company, often, their job is to be connecting people and responding to their team's questions. Salespeople, for example, can find it quite difficult to do because they also are responding to customer queries as they come in, etc. The second is that, my company doesn't support it. And it's not necessarily a myth. I think that is actually true. But it's untrue that you can't do anything about it. I think that as more and more companies start to recognize that if they believe that their competitive advantage is the quality of the thought works that their company is able to create, then they have to create a deep work culture. Because if they don't, then they're just, they're paying for a bunch of very smart people to not think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so reminding and you can see, thankfully, now there's a lot of great precedents. More and more companies are doing things like a 4-day work week or a no meeting Friday, or, are encouraging people to block notifications on their devices for certain hours a day. We're starting to see this happen more and more. And I think that all of us can try to be the catalyst for that kind of cultural change in our organizations. I think the other is that you need to do deep work on your deep work sessions. Sometimes when I look at my inbox and I see like several hundred emails in there, and I go, right, I'm going to set myself the task in the next hour to get from 200 to 150 emails. Go. And so I'm still applying that same deep work philosophy, which is I'm focused on this, I've stopped other notifications, I've set myself a tangible goal, I've written it down, I've told someone else, and I'm really, really focused. So I think that even if you're not doing something super, super deep, you can still apply the techniques for focus to help you achieve all sorts of different types of work.
Thank you so much to Alicia. And if you want to find out more about Flown and the science behind deep work, then head to flown.com. And for those that are interested, they're also doing a 30-day free trial, so you can find out about that as well on her website. And we'll link to that free trial in the show notes, as well as Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, which Alicia mentions in our chat.
Loved this episode so much, Kate.
Yeah, I did. I really did. There were so many times during it where I thought, yes, that makes so much sense, and that is exactly what I need in my life.
Yes. There's a slight bit of me that's like, and I don't know if it's too soon to bring this up, there's a slight bit of me, do you remember episode, was it 7, Getting Shit Done? And, the reasons about why we procrastinate. But I think for those of us who definitely do procrastinate and who multitask and who are probably quite firmly on the ADHD spectrum and find it hard to focus, I think she had some really good, sensible, workable tips and tricks, didn't she?
She really did. And I like the way she talked about them as psychological hacks. Almost, we like to think that we're these unique individuals, but actually there's a lot, we're quite predictable in the way that our brains work. And knowing that and being able to hack into that really appealed to me. And it's funny because I've recently started paying, I could work from home quite happily. Lots of people do. But I've just found it increasingly hard, and I've not really been able to verbalise why. And I've rented a desk in a shared office space, and suddenly I am being so much more productive, much more effective. And then hearing her talk about that, I was like, yes, that is why. Because when I'm in the office and there's people around me who are getting their head down and working, and there is that social interaction, and I do feel this kind of obligation to show that I am working and not just watching Netflix or sitting on my phone. It's so effective that what she speaks is truth.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a feeling I've had as well from working from home. And I get that feeling where partway through the day, if I haven't really got going with stuff, I kind of think, nobody's watching. I literally have that kind of feeling, like I don't have a boss. Nobody's telling me what to do.
Obviously, we are talking about quite a specific type of work. If you work in healthcare and you're in a hospital ward.
Sorry.
You know, these things, it doesn't really kind of...
Or in a shop. You've got no choice. Sorry about
Or
that.
if you're a policeman. This is probably for quite a sort of specific type of work, but it's the sort of work that you and I do, so it does work.
This episode's really relevant to us, you guys, so...
Unlucky.
But we did pick a task that is relevant to everybody, no matter what job you're in. We decided to do the morning pages.
Tell me, how did you find it?
I've banged on about this a lot, that I used to do journaling and gratitudes every day. Yeah. And occasionally I get back into it and then I fall straight back off it. It has been really good to get back into it. It's like, just also that structure of coming down in the morning, grabbing a coffee, grabbing my pad, leaving my phone in the kitchen and just writing has been really good. And I'd forgotten about how, like, some of the problem solving or some of the tying point A to point C can only happen when you're writing it out and things become clear. And I had a fucking terrible night's sleep and a terrible dream last night, and writing about it this morning, writing all my feelings about it, dumping it all out first thing, has really helped to kind of process it and move it through my body somehow. So, How did she say that was going to tie into deep work again? Can you remind me? Oh, it's to clear our brains.
Yeah, she said it can help you by exactly as you said, that clearing your brains can help you then when you get to that moment in your day when you want to do some deep focused work. You don't have all the noise going on in your head. So you can, you've got that out. Yeah. So you can then properly focus without all the chatter going on in your mind. Yeah. And getting into a practice of doing it every day can just keep that healthy mindset going. It's funny, isn't it? Because I was chatting to someone the other night and they were saying that there's something about journaling. People talking about journaling, it just makes it feel a bit ick. It's like it's this sort of slight cliche of the wellness industry, isn't it? Do you journal?
Yes.
But actually, there is a lot to be said.
Yeah, and I think the real emphasis on it doesn't have to flow well. It doesn't have to be lengthy, beautiful prose. Just any old shit. You just get it out your head. It can be bullet points. It can be thoughts. It can be completely disjointed. You're just getting it out of your head.
100%. And that is the point of daily pages, isn't it? That it's not a dear diary today, whatever. It is just a blah, 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 blah. And actually sometimes, well, in the artist way when they talk about it, they literally are just like, it doesn't even matter, if the words even link with each other. Just keep writing. Yeah.
And what I find really helps, and I know I've spoken about this before, and I'm going to do it again, is when you then turn it around and you're writing to yourself. So if you're kind of writing to yourself from your, I don't know, higher consciousness or your guardian angel or whoever, they're writing to you. And I always start with, hey, Gwen, you're doing great. And I write to myself, honestly, this sounds weird, but sometimes I really do feel like I'm channeling, like my hand can't keep up with my pen, It's just flowing out of me. And it's generally this voice being really kind. It's it's your inner kind voice spilling out, going, "Hey, you don't usually listen to me. Now's my chance."
As opposed to, "Oi, you Karen, delete your account."
So I have found it really, really helpful. How about you, Kate?
Brilliant. Yeah, I found it really helpful as well, and I found it was getting the whirlwind of all the thoughts out of my head and onto paper. And whether it's things I want to get done during the day, something maybe that I'm confused or frustrated about, or just, general thoughts and musings from the depths of my brain. But I was just thinking that the whole, being aware of this daily pages thing, that the whole point is you've got to keep your pen moving, pen moving. Don't stop and reread and edit your work. Don't go back and cross something out and rewrite it in a different way. Just keep your pen moving. I did also realise I have the handwriting of a 4-year-old child. Oh my life. I got such bad handwriting. I couldn't go back and reread it if I wanted to be honest with you. It's just pages of the scrawlings of a madman. Just the act though of writing all of that down just made me feel clearer about things and just helped my brain feel quieter.
Nice.
Which felt really good. Interestingly though, and when I was thinking about what I wanted to say about this task and about how it just helped me kind of quiet that sort of whirlwind of thoughts in my head, I listened to, randomly, I don't even know why I listened to it, this radio documentary about this piece of research that this group of scientists had done into people's inner voices. And what they found through it was that some people don't have one.
Huh?
Some people, it is just peaceful quiet in their head, and they don't have that inner voice. They don't have those scenarios playing themselves out. They don't have that inner dialogue going on. And then other people have it really loud. And then, like all things in life, there's a sliding spectrum between the two. And I was thinking about that, about what it must be like to not have that voice in your head. We all assume that our own experience of life is universal, don't we? We all experience that the way that my inner thoughts play out is probably very similar experience to other people. I think it's probably quite similar to yours.
Yeah. But that actually makes a lot of sense, because if you think of our friends, we've all got a couple of them who are super sciencey or super mathsy, and you think of them, they probably find focus work really easy. And
they do it all the time.
Yeah, they must have very different brains.
Do you reckon you'll continue to do this? I mean, who are we kidding? We always say we're not going to do these things every day, are we? Let's not call it daily pages. Let's call it occasional.
As often as possible pages.
Yeah. Do you reckon every now and then you will?
I would love to. It's such a good start to the day. And I remember reading 3 sides of A5 is the optimum. You want to do minimum of that. And I really do feel so much better and my head is clearer when I am doing it. So if at all possible, yes, I would love to. And also I'm really going to try and do more, what was it called? Body doubling. And and really try to kind of make sure that I am allocating a time of a day where it's like, this is my time where I'm just working.
Yeah.
And I would love to have time in my day where I'm not thinking I should be doing something else and not multitasking. And I want to have that feeling, that wonderful feeling of satisfaction that you only get when you've been working in flow and you've achieved a task and you walk away from it. I want more of that, please. Yeah. How about you, Kate?
Yeah, the same. I'm not going to commit to it every day, but I will do it. And particularly, it might be one of those things if I'm having a day where I'm really feeling like, oh my God, there are so many things to do. Plus, I don't know what to do about that and that and that. And my brain feels like there's a box of squirrels going mad in there. Those are the days I really think I'll sit down and be like, right, let's just let it all get out. And then I'll be able to properly focus better afterwards. Yeah.
And I just want to ask you really quickly, Kate, because obviously there will be people listening going, I don't have time to bloody sit down right in the morning. Are you joking? But Kate, you are representative of the more busy half of the population, those with kids and husbands and etc. So is it possible to fit it in even with your life with, revolving around Weetabix and school uniforms, etc.?
Yeah. Oh, Weetabix on school uniforms, which is
nice.
Bringing together of the two things. Not every day, but... And I guess there's different ways of approaching it, isn't there? I often think about our changing habits episode that we did with Sharu.
Yeah.
And she said, and I actually did that, putting my notebook, whatever it was I want to write in, next to the kettle. So while you're standing there half asleep while the kettle's boiling, doing it then.
Yeah.
Or doing it on the bus or doing it while I'm having my morning coffee. So yeah, I can. But you're right, that feeling that you get and actually holding on to that feeling, and We've talked about this in other episodes, haven't we? Kind of imagining what it will feel like after you've had that experience of really flowing, deep work.
Yeah.
And that's a real motivator, isn't it? Because it feels good. Thank you for listening to Write Up My Podcast. And as always, we'd love to hear from you. So email us at writeupmypodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at our handle @WriteUpMy.
Please subscribe and follow wherever you listen. And if you are feeling generous, please head over to Apple Podcast and review us. 5 stars, please. And please share with your friends.
And why not head over to Patreon, where for the cost of a cup of coffee a month, you can join our Rump Club, where you'll have access to all sorts of extra wiffle waffles from Gwen and I, plus episode extras and all sorts of interesting bits and bobs. So that's patreon.com/writeupmypodcast. And thank you very much to the team who work with Gwen and I on this podcast. That is
Andy G, who creates all of our music. He is a music maestro. And to Erica Francis George, who handcuts all of our titles and created our branding. Thank you, you wonderful people.
And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with our next episode, where we'll be talking all about the relationship between gardening and well-being. And meanwhile, keep trying things
to make you feel good. Bye-bye.
Tell me, did you like the podcast, Brian?
No!
Oh. If, unlike Brian, you thought our podcast was really great, then don't hold back. Like, subscribe, and tell your mate. But if, like Brian, you thought our podcast wasn't fun, then just keep quiet. Don't feel the need to tell anyone. We'd love to hear from you if you've got some thoughts to share. Such rich and lovely views that all should be aware of. But I hope you liked our podcast and you thought it was really great. And if you did, like, subscribe, and tell your mate. 'Cause we don't need grumpy pants bringing everybody down. No, we don't need negative Nellies making people frown. No. So I hope you liked our podcast and you thought it was really great. And if you did, like, subscribe, and tell your mate.